Cairo is filled with beautiful buildings, many of them built during the English colonial period, and many of them have not been upgraded since, retaining their original antique appearance and all the character and charm that comes with it. Cairo is a work in progress. New and not so new construction is everywhere. Also, Cairo is a desert city, so some consideration must be given to the quality of the view through a car window. Despite the dust and the haze, the views through one's window in Old Cairo are rather spectacular. Especially near Giza, the pyramids loom out of the distance like mountains, and during my first visit in 2016, my first visit to the Giza Plateau was a nearly religious experience. On this visit, Noora and I were busy making sure that all was in order for us to get married. We visited several buildings around Cairo, including this one, another granite statement of British colonial authority. It was a royal paper chase for us both. We spent days running from one ministry to another. We had all the paperwork and had planned months in advance for this big event. However, we still had to negotiate the Egyptian civil service. No mean feat, I can assure you. As with our first visit, Noora's wise ahead-of-time planning saved the day, and the nature of the Egyptian culture also served up some happy surprises. As with my first trip, I nursed some romantic notions of being married in a mosque by an imam, Noora in a flowing hijab, and me in a smart Western tuxedo. It was not to be the case. But all was well, and we found ourselves married in a simple ceremony in the office of a prominent judge, with Noora's uncle and brother as witnesses. You know, I've only been in the country a couple of days, and it's been a long time since I've been here, 2 years. And yet I find myself captivated by everything that I see around me. The way the people, migrate and navigate through the streets amidst the crowds of traffic. The way they hang their laundry out the windows. The way they don't seem to care that all the buildings are covered in dirt and dust from 20 or 30 years ago. It actually gives many of the buildings in Cairo a great deal of character. Something you don't see in America because we're always so fastidious about cleanliness and brightness and cheerfulness. But here in Cairo, here in Egypt, things are different. The pace is simultaneously faster and slower. People don't worry so much about appearances. They're more concerned with the substance of things than the mere appearance of them. A lot of people get caught up in the gross of things and forget the subtle issues of life. And that's something you don't see here in Egypt too often. Mind you, it wasn't all work and formalities. While I waited to meet up with Noora, I took the time to just drink in my surroundings, the sounds, the aromas of Giza. Giza is not merely a tourist area. Hundreds of people work here, providing services to hotels and to the locals, selling goods and offering tours to the visitors. I had some time to venture out and visit Giza for what was going to be my first real extended visit to the plateau. Today, I'm going to go climb inside of that. Or that, depending on which one is open. Getting to the pyramids is no easy feat. The pyramids are much larger in person than they appear down at the hotels. Walking up to them takes quite a bit of legwork. When I finally got to the pyramids, I found that I'd come too late for my day's adventure. Well, bad news. I got all the way up here. It was about 3:25 when I finally got here. And they weren't selling any tickets at the entrance to the pyramid. So if I had to walk all the way back down and then come all the way back up with a ticket, I probably wouldn't have gotten to the inner chamber before it was time to close, in which case they would have either told me to come back tomorrow, in which case I can't come back anyway, or I can always put it off till the next time I come back to Egypt. After all, these pyramids have been here for thousands of years, and they'll be here the next time I come. But other than that, it's been a good visit. It's quiet for the most part, really. The weather is good, it's warm, it's generally peaceful, and despite the crowds and the hubbub, I feel like I'm at peace up here. Peace. It's a recurring theme here in Egypt. Despite being in the eye of an international storm of conflicts and politics, Egypt provides we African Americans with an opportunity for real peace. No police sirens flashing in your rearview mirror, no microaggressions from your white counterparts in the office, or even from the hotel staff, or strange looks from passers-by. In a way, for us who choose to come to countries in Africa like Egypt, this land is a true fortress of solitude. You know, a lot of people would look at these monuments and just say, there's so many stones, one on top of the other. But they've always been more than that, especially to people like myself. For me, the pyramids are an article of faith, a belief in the life after life, a belief in God, and a belief in something greater than oneself. And that is something that is sincerely lacking in our society in the West. I think we can all learn a lot from the ancient Egyptians, a lot indeed. I took in the views for a while longer. Then I went back to the hotel to meet Noora for dinner. On the evening before Noora and I got married, I found myself on the balcony of my hotel alone. Noora had gone home after we had had dinner, and I took the time to take in my surroundings. Like any man about to get married, I found myself deep in thought about the changes in my life that I was about to commit to. A man dies out of his old life and is reborn into his new one. Thus all the sweating and soul-searching. Soul-searching is what I found myself doing the night before our rendezvous in the judge's office. Good evening. Today has been February the 10th, 2018. It's around 9 p.m. in the evening. I'm still at the Mina Pyramid Inn in Cairo, across from the Giza Plateau. I went to Giza late today in order that I might ascend into one of the pyramids, the Khufu Pyramid, I believe, and crawl into the narrow spaces and visit the upper chamber. But time and circumstances prevented me from doing this. But that's not really the reason I'm making this log entry. Tomorrow, after much waiting and delay and paperwork and hundreds of dollars spent, both by Noora and myself, we're going to go down to the ministry, and we're going to see our lawyer, and we're going to make out the marriage contract. I was lying in bed earlier, thinking about this. I felt I needed to say something to mark the occasion. I must tell you, I'm feeling slightly ambivalent about the whole thing. I've meditated on the subject over and over, and I've come to the conclusion that I am doing the right thing. It's not an easy thing to do, to get married, to tie yourself to another person for however long or short a period of time. One point I want to make here. Yeah, I did say I was ambivalent about the whole thing. One thing you women need to know about us men,
We don't always know when we are happy. Mind you, I tried the strong, silent, single-man routine after my divorce. Trust me, being single is not as exciting as it sounds. The biological imperative is screaming in your ears, and to be blunt, a man's life just isn't worth living without someone to share it with. And so, here we are.
That's all for now. Until next time, take care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. You know, for most African Americans, Africa is something, well, of a riddle. And that's because the vast majority of African Americans have never been to any African country. In fact, most African Americans have probably never been out of the United States. And that's part of the reason I'm making this film. If you're going to think outside the box, you're going to have to get outside of the box itself, at least once or twice in your life. And once you do that, begin to see that things are not, quite what you think they are. In life, things are seldom what they seem. And the only way for you to decide whether or not you want to leave America and leave behind all the attendant problems that go with America and American-style racism, you're going to have to save up some money and come here, or at least to one of the other countries on the African continent, or perhaps somewhere else if Africa is not your cup of tea or coffee. But once you do that, then you'll begin to see that things can change, and for the better. In the 2 trips that I've made to Africa at the making of this video, I have begun to solve at least half of all the problems that attend the question of whether or not I can move out of America on a full-time basis and live in any African country. So what you're going to have to do, basically, is come and see for yourself. I can make all the films in the world, but the only way that you're going to be convinced that your life might be better living somewhere other than under a cloud of racism and bigotry is to leave America at some point and come and see for yourself, whether it's here in Egypt or in some other African country or some other part of the world, such as maybe Brazil or the Caribbean. Either way, once you get out from under that cloud of indecision and doubt and even fear, you'll be able to see more clearly and take your time. The slower you go, the more of the way ahead you'll be able to see. So if you ever get the chance, and most of you will have the chance if you're not a felon and you're unable to get a passport, or you're in jail somewhere and you can't leave the country, if your circumstances are not so prohibitive, save yourself some money, buy a coach ticket and come and see for yourself. And then once you've seen the ways that other people live and the welcoming nature of other people in other parts of the world, as I have found out here in Cairo and in other parts of Egypt, you too will be a believer.
And I can tell you that Egypt in particular, and Africa in general, have made a believer out of me. Noora and I did find time to visit Giza together, and we had a wonderful time, and so will you. See you next time. The African Adventure video series is part of the larger Exodus film project, a 3-film series on how African Americans can move to African countries to live peaceful, successful lives. Please support this project and the Africa Open for Business video series, an ongoing series of video discussions with movers and shakers from across the African diaspora at Patreon. Please be sure to share, comment, rate, and subscribe to our videos. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.